and the transformation of the patient are inseparable processes. At the heart of this tradition stands the idea of a medicina integralis, a holistic vision in which bodily cure, spiritual regeneration, and the pursuit of cosmic harmony converge. For the alchemists of the Occitan-Catalan world, healing was never merely the correction of a physiological imbalance. It was a dynamic practice that required attunement to matter, sensitivity to its transformations, and an ethical engagement with the patient's inner disposition. My central argument is that this Occitan-Catalan world, in this Occitan-Catalan world, alchemy functioned as a medical art of care, a practice in which healing, spirituality, and material transformation formed one continuous process. Medieval alchemy has often been framed in modern scholarship through the lenses of chrysopeia, from the Greek word coming from the Greek that means making of gold, which was the branch of alchemy concerned with the artificial production or transmutation of base metal into noble metals, especially gold, and symbolically to a process of a spiritual perfection, regeneration, and illumination. The sources I have examined point instead to a therapeutic alchemy oriented toward care, attention, and the ethical transformation of the healer. The texts, ranging from recipes from healing powers to meditative instructions on the virtues of plants, stones, and metal, emerge from a milieu shaped by Franciscan spirituality of the Occitan-Catalan area. With Sephardic medical traditions and the practical knowledge of Mediterranean artisans. Their shared emphasis is not on the spectacular production of gold, but on the quiet, iterative refinement of bodily and spiritual materials in the serving of restoring balance, vitality, and relational harmony. These works places tactile, sensory, and affective experience at the center of the therapeutic encounter. Several of the manuscripts, in fact, describe the healers and as an instrument whose efficacy depends not only on technical skill, but also on an inner disposition of humility, presence, and pure attention. Likewise, the preparation of medical substances is depicted as a spiritual exercise, one in which the alchemist's capacity to listen to matter through smell, colors, and textures becomes as important as the procedural steps of distillation or calcination. Intercultural transmission plays a crucial role in shaping this alchemical healing tradition. Many of the ingredients and techniques appearing in the Occitan-Catalan text, such as Theriac, the elixir, or the use of the golden wine, reflect Sephardic pharmacological expertise circulating across the Western Mediterranean. At the same time, the contemplative framing of alchemical work, especially the insistence on interior stillness, resonates strongly with Franciscan devotional practices in the Occitan-Catalan area. Rather than representing isolated stands, the manuscripts attest to a vibrant hybrid medical culture in which monastic Jewish and artisanal knowledge interacted fluidly. By foregrounding the healing purpose of alchemical procedures rather than their metallurgical, speculative, or esoteric dimensions, the Occitan-Catalan tradition challenges modern disciplinary boundaries and invites us to rethink what counted as medical expertise in the late medieval Mediterranean. It also offers a model of care in which transformation is understood as a shared process between substances, bodies, and communities, mediated by practices of attention, discernment, and ethical self-cultivation. Ultimately, this presentation proposes the medieval alchemical healing was a form of embodied knowledge, an art that shaped and was shaped by the sensory and spiritual life of both healer and patient. The perspective I suggest may help illuminate contemporary debates in the medical humanities regarding relations, perception, and the aesthetics of care. The pursuit of the universal elixir took root early in the Occitan-Catalan world, where between the 12th and the 16th century, a distinctive medico-alchemical culture emerged. This environment, shaped by a dense network of universities, especially Montpellier or Lleida, mendicant orders, Jewish communities, and the courtly structures of the Crown of Aragon, fostered what I reconstruct as a veritable Occitan-Catalan alchemical school. A constellation of texts, patrons, and laboratories in which medicine, natural philosophy, and spiritual reform converged. Alchemists active in this region were often multilingual physicians, apothecaries, or clerics, frequently linked to the Franciscan spirituals, who cultivated an alchemy of healing rather than metallurgical spectacle. Central to their work was the elixir, understood as a perfect medicine capable of preserving life and restoring bodily equilibrium. Among the most influential figures stands John of Rupecissa, in Occitan, Joan de Rocatallada, whose De Considerazione Quinte Essentiae systematized the distillation of vinum ardens into a stable quintessence. His innovations, deeply rooted in the practical distillation traditions of the region, anticipated later Paracelsian spagyria and circulated widely across Europe, becoming a cornerstone of late medieval medical alchemy. This ecosystem was ambivalent: royal patronage, licenses, laboratories, protection coexisted with inquisitorial scrutiny, yet the continuity of vernacular translation, pseudo-Lulian and pseudo-Arnaldian corpora, and documented artisanal workshop shows how strongly the medical alchemical synthesis flourished in the Crown of Aragon. Early modern pharmacies were vibrant crossroads where medical theory, artisanal practice, and alchemical experimentation intertwined. As the professions of physician and apothecary gradually diverged, their collaboration remained vital. Physicians diagnosed and prescribed, while apothecaries determined dosage, texture, and the sensory qualities that made a remedy effective. This interplay is vividly captured in the 1749 Materia medica of Carl Linnaeus, engraved by this pupil Johann Gustav Hallmann, where remedies are organized not by alphabet, but by energetic and therapeutic categories, stimulantia, calefacentia, incidentia, and by the ailments they were designed to address. At the center of Hallmann's apothecary stand two universal medicines that epitomize the meeting of art and science. The elixir, heir to the Occitan-Catalan tradition of quintessent and perfective medicines, and the Theriac, a Galenic composite that blended dozens of ingredients through slow ritualized preparation. Around them, jars of poisons with ironic labels, drawers filled with aromatic woods and flowers, distillation vessels, and carefully prepared symbols evoke a world in which healing depended as much on sensory judgment and artisanal skill as on learned theory. This scene resonates with the medical alchemical practices documented in the Occitan-Catalan tradition, where physicians, apothecaries, and spiritual practitioners worked side by side, drawing on shared techniques of distillation, purification, and the handling of potent substances. Such environments, both monastic and urban, were laboratories of innovation, where textual traditions, practical expertise, and economic networks converged to shape the materia medica of the late medieval and early modern Mediterranean. Let me now turn to Theriac. That was one of the most celebrated compound remedies of the ancient medieval and early modern worlds, a prestigious antidote that evolved from a snake bite remedy into a universal panacea against fevers, pain, and above all the fears surrounding epidemic diseases. Its making was a slow, ritualized craft. Dozens of ingredients, roots, resins, aromatics, dried petals, oriental spices, wine, honey, and often viper flesh were ground, cooked, and left to mature for months or even years in sealed vessels. In monastic infirmaries or elite apothecaries, healers prepared it with extraordinary sensory attention, judging fragrance, texture, and color like true artisans of cure. A single dose dissolved in warm wine or water was given only in the gravest cases. Across Greek, Islamic, and Latin traditions, Theriac embodied far more than pharmacology. In the Greek word, Nikander's Theriaca already cast it as a learned antidote poem, while Galen devoted an entire treatise to its preparation. In the Islamic world, richly illustrated treatises such as the 13th century Kitab al-Theriac transformed Theriac into a compendium of medical knowledge, artistry, and biography, depicting apothecaries carefully weighing ingredients under the supervision of learned physicians. By the Middle Ages, Theriac had become a cornerstone of medico-alchemical imagination. As highlighted in Antoine Calvet's lecture to My Healing Powers conference in Pisa, thinkers from Arnaldo Villanova to the anonymous authors of the Testament des Nobles Philosophes developed the idea of a medicina Theriacalis, a healing power in which the capacity to drive out venom was both literal and symbolic. Some texts describe places where the very air carries a theriacal virtue. Others offer striking allegories, such as the serpent devouring the red man, to illustrate the fusion of poisonous and healing forces. In 14th centuries plague treatises, Theriac even appears alongside the Philosopher's Stone as an ultimate safeguard against corruption and death. Seen through these interwoven traditions, Theriac becomes much more than a celebrated drug. It stands at the crossroads of medicine, artisanal practice, alchemical thought, and ethical responsibility. A multi-layered remedy that promised not only to cure diseases, but to restore balance, vitality, and resilience in the living body. A testament to the enduring human desire to master poison, purge corruption, and preserve life. Aurum potabile takes us into a different but related terrain. Across the centuries, few remedies fascinated physicians, philosophers, and alchemists as profoundly as aurum potabile, the enigmatic drinkable gold. Celebrated as a universal panacea, it was credited with fortifying the heart, preserving youth, resisting corruption, and, according to some, prolonging life. Medieval authors often compared in therapeutic prowess to that of Theriac, referring to its alleged anti-poisonous and life-preserving power. Between the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, aurum potabile became the focus of increasingly elaborate procedures. Dissolutions of gold leaf, repeated distillations, combination with wine, herbs, and aromatic substances, and long periods of maturation. These practices mirrored broader debates about the medicinal value of minerals, as natural philosophers and physicians asked whether metals, particularly noble ones, could be made biologically active without compromising their purity or incorruptibility. Aurum potabile marked a turning point in the pharmacological imagination, where the mineral realm entered the materia medica not merely symbolically, but through painstaking experimentation. The remedy also became a battleground of interpretation. Figures such as Arnaud de Villanova and early modern court physicians disputed its nature. Was it a true medicine, the product of natural gold exposed to celestial and vital forces, or was an alchemical illusion incapable of transmitting the cordial virtues attributed to unalterated gold? These controversies reflected broader epistemic tensions between Galenic humoral theory, alchemical theories of spiritualized matter, and emerging protochemical methodologies. Yes, its reputed effects, treating fevers and inflammations, aiding digestion, strengthening the vital spirits, and resisting putrefaction, ensured that aurum potabile circulated widely in elite medical contexts. More than a rare and costly remedy, aurum potabile embodied the pre-modern ideal that healing required the perfect alignment of nature, art, and celestial harmony. At the crossroads of medicine and alchemy, it stands today as a revealing case study of how early practitioners understood the transformative power of substances and ultimately of life itself. Finally, the summit of these traditions stands the elixir. It occupies a central place in the imaginary and practices of the Occitan-Catalan medico-alchemical school, where it was, as Theriac, never merely a drug, but a true technology of transformation of the body, of matter, and of life itself. In medieval sources, the elixirs appears as a perfect substance, artificially forged through the stage of solvent et coagula, capable not only of transmuting metals, but of bringing everybody to its highest perfection. This is attested in the pseudo-Lulian and pseudo-Ornalian text, is a central term. Through the dissolution of substances into their prima materia, the separation of the elements and their reunification into a new and incorruptible body, the elixir becomes a bridge between metallurgical alchemy and regenerative medicine, a living compound that unites the spirit and the body of matter. The Western idea of the elixir stems from a complex Greco-Arabic and Eastern heritage. On one side, the Greek definition of elixir as a perfect treasure. On the other, the Arabic Islamic conception of elixir as a substance capable of rebalancing any body, organic or mineral, and bringing it closer to its ideal condition. It is the reflections of Arnaud de Villanova, Ramon Llull, and Roger Bacon, and especially of John of Rupescissa, that this notion becomes fully medico-alchemical with them. No? Arnaud and Ramon Llull, I speak always of pseudo-Arnaud and pseudo-Ramon Llull, because we know that Arnaud and Ramon Llull were not alchemists. By distilling vinum ardens until obtaining the quintessentia, Rupescissa argues that the elixir is a protection against corruption, an agent of life preservation, and a universal remedy, anticipating an entire tradition of spiritual and therapeutic elixirs. Occitan-Catalan alchemists conceived it as a remedy accessible even to the poor and the marginalized, grounding their research in a surprisingly humanitarian and inclusive vision of care. From their perspective, creating the elixir meant participating in the regeneration of the world, redeeming the fragilities of the body, and contributing to the balance of the entire community. The elixir became a powerful symbol. It represents the human dream of a healthy body, a longer life, and the world reconciled with its vital forces. More than a final product, it is a process, such as a laboratory in which matter, ethics, and spirituality converge. For many Native American and indigenous communities, medicine is not a substance, but a relationship, a way of restoring balance between body, mind, and the spirit, and the living environment. Healing emerges from an ethic of reciprocity between humans, plants, landscape, and ancestors, rather than from the treatment of isolated symptoms. Indigenous healers, often women, midwives, and curanderas cultivated a sophisticated pharmacopoeia grounded in attentive observation, ritual practice, and intergenerational transmission. Their knowledge extended far beyond identifying a plant's therapeutic properties. It included the right season and lunar phase for harvesting, the songs or prayer then open the plant's potency, and the sensory cues, texture, scent, color that reveal its readiness, issuing the embodied epistemologies we have seen in medieval alchemical practice. Healers worked with a rich array of native species, golden seal, echinacea, with the hazel, black, koch, sage, cedar, tobacco, each carrying both physiological and spiritual significance. These remedies operated within a worldview in which illness signals disharmony and cure requires realignment with the wider web of life. As in the medico-alchemical tradition examined earlier, healing was not merely technical but relational, involving presence, attunement, and the cultivation of inner stillness. The plant world was understood as a teacher, a living materia medica, capable of communicating through dreams, intuition, and direct sensory engagement. Seen in this light, native medicinal plant traditions offer a compelling parallel to Occitan-Catalan alchemy. Both articulate a holistic science of care, one in which transformation is inseparable from ethics, perception, and the healer's ability to enter into a meaningful dialogue with nature. In both worlds, healing is ultimately an act of balance between matter and spirit, humans and environment, knowledge and devotion. In closing, this research invites us to reconsider medieval alchemy not as a marginal or esoteric pursuit, but as a profound science of healing, one that united matter and spirit, laboratory technique and contemplative discipline, bodily cure and cosmic harmony. Through the Occitan-Catalan tradition, we encounter a medico-alchemical culture that flourished in monasteries, artisanal workshops, Sephardic households, and the courts of the Crown of Aragon, where physicians, friars, and apothecaries collaboratively experimented with the transformative power of substances. Across the remedies examined, Theriac, aurum, potabile, and above all the elixir, a shared vision emerges that health is not merely the absence of disease, but the restoration of balance, vitality, and right relationship within the body and the wider cosmos. Theriac, originally an antidote against venom, became a model for a universal preservative medicine, where poisonous and healing forces were understood as interwoven. In the Pseudo-Lulian corpus and in the writings of John Frupescissa, it appears as a pharmacological and symbolic threshold, an image of purification, resilience, and regeneration. Aurum potabile, liquid gold, reflected the belief that incorruptible substances could transmit their harmony to human bodies, stabilizing the vital spirits and delaying decay. Its long debates between Galenic physicians, alchemists, and early chemists reveal how minerals, metals, and celestial influences were integrated into a broader therapeutic imagination. At the apex of this tradition stands the elixir, a living tincture capable of perfecting any body, organic or mineral. Neither miracle nor fantasy. It embodied the highest aspiration of medieval medical alchemy. Crafting the elixir required the dissolution of matter into its prima materia, its purification and its recomposition into a more resilient and harmonious form, a process that mirrored the ethical and spiritual refinement expected of the healer. As the sources remind us, to prepare the elixirs was also to cultivate humility, discernment, and pure attention. What ultimately emerges from this constellation of text, image, and practices across monastic cellars, urban pharmacies, Sephardic workshops, and royal courts is a vision of medicina integralis, a holistic art in which the transformation of substances and the transformation of the patient are inseparable acts. By tracing these intertwined worlds, this study illuminates alchemy as a practical philosophy of care and the sensory science of transformation. It calls us to recognize within medieval alchemical healing not the pursuit of goal, but the pursuit of equilibrium between nature and art, body and soul, the visible and the invisible. If the medieval alchemist longed for an elixir that could preserve life, today their legacy challenges us to imagine forms of healing that are again attentive, embodied, relational, and deeply human. What emerges from this medieval world is a model of care in which healing is a relational, ethical, and sensory practice, an idea that resonates deeply with contemporary medical humanities. If medieval alchemists longed for an elixir that could preserve life, today their legacy challenges us to imagine forms of healing that are once again attentive, embodied, relational, and deeply human. And this, I suggest, is the true gold of their tradition. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. That was really, really interesting. And if I could do a little plug for SHAC, Larry Principe has edited John Rupicuska's Book of Light, which will appear as Sources, which is a series of primary texts that we've been producing over the last few years. And that should be out in February next year. No promises, though. Publishers, as we know, can sort of delay things, but that's keep a lookout for that. And if you're not a member of SHAC, you won't get a copy. But if you are a member of SHAC, you will get a copy. It's as simple and straightforward as that. So I'm going to exercise my usual chair's prerogative and ask the first question, and that is, who actually paid for this? I mean, you refer to sort of pharmacists before they sort of split off, apothecaries and physicians before they split off from each other. And one can see that people would pay fees for that sort of medical support. But you also talk about laboratories, and you talk about monastic settings as well. So I'm just wondering the mechanisms by which the people who undertook this sort of work were paid, and is there anything specific about the Occitan-Catalan Mediterranean world that sort of allowed this to happen in a way that it didn't happen elsewhere in Europe at that time?
No, I don't find information about that people pay for this. Is this the question, isn't it? Yes. Because the objective of the friar that were the principal interested in alchemy was just diffond the medicine, the medicina perfecta in Occitan to the poor people, to the ones that couldn't have the cure of the physicians, of the doctors. So there was an humanitarian idea beyond this. And then other alchemists were also artisans. For example, the one of which I reconstructed the profile, this Jaume Mas of the Villa de Bagà, of the city of Bagà in Berguedà in Catalonia, was a blacksmith, for example. So he has like a laboratory in which he did his activity, and in the meantime he copied a pseudo-Lulian manuscript, a very important pseudo-Lulian manuscript that is the Testamentum, the Testament in Catalan, directly in Catalan from a Catalan manuscript. But this work just a laboratory copy, just like a book in which he resumed parts of the original manuscript. He make his own notes about the success of the experiments, of questions that comes to his mind reading the original, and so on. And so also this kind, for example, of alchemist works for their own interest, so not to sell. But it's curious that the nephew of Jaume Mas, for example, become physicians in Barcelona. And so from the internal city of Bagà, from the country to the big city, Barcelona, and from a blacksmith laboratory hidden in the mountains, they become physician recognized in Barcelona. So he was like an ancestor. But yes, about pay, about money, no. And then laboratories in royal courts, for example, because the Catalan kings that were cult and refined kings support alternative science like alchemy, for example. They were curious, and I spoke about the licenses that they give to alchemists, even if there was also the Inquisition, and so there was some ambivalence. But they were very interested, not only for gold, but also for health. Especially, we have noticed, for example, that also the queens, the Catalan queens, for example, Maria de Luna or Violant de Bar, use alchemy for health. Stones, they see a wool opus experiment, and so on. And I just returned from Palma. We have a conference on Ramon Llull, and it seems that in Almudaina Palace, that is a very nice palace. If you see in Palma, there is a tower, the Torre dell'Angel, no, the Tower of Angel, in which there was a laboratory with an equipe of alchemists. So not only one. So all the territories of the Crown of Aragon were linked with this kind of science. I don't know if I have answered.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's extraordinary. Yeah. So many laboratories around the place. Could you stop sharing screen so we can all see each other?
What?
Could you stop sharing screen so we can all see?
Okay. So.
Right, excellent. Okay. Just a reminder, anybody watching on YouTube who wants to ask a question, put it in the chat and it will be passed to me. I've already had one, which says, "Thank you for your presentation," which is nice. Alex.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation. Thank you very much. So you mentioned Franciscan and Sephardic networks that were working on the Theriac and potentially also other medicinal alchemy. Were there any interactions between these different networks? Is there historic evidence that these networks talk to each other? And if so, was that bidirectional or was it in one direction? Did they share experiments and recipes? Anything you can illuminate on this aspect would be appreciated.
Yes, there are news about links between them. So some information of alchemists that come in contact between them. And also the kings. There are information that the kings were, for example, friend of some alchemists, have access to the library of some alchemists. So I think there was a net, but we are just working on the reconstruction of this. Because you see that my doctoral thesis, for example, is the first in Catalan of alchemical text. So I have not a basis. A part of Michela Pereira, Professor Michela Pereira and Chiara Crisciani, that are two Italians scholars that worked just in Occitan-Catalan area. And I am in contact with them. They participate to the conference of Pisa and they collaborate also to the book that I am editing with Lawrence Principe. So I have not a lot of material about, and I am working like the first side, so the first end. So yes, I think that because the Occitan-Catalan area was united, was a continuum. It has political, cultural, and scientific links, and was more simple to walk from a part to the other and exchange knowledge. So I think so that there were there was a relation, and especially with the net of the Franciscanism, I think. Because if we think also to the, for example, prohibitions, no, there were a lot of prohibition to the Franciscan, especially. So alchemy is not permitted. So not one time, a lot of prohibition to the Franciscan, but alchemy continued to circulate. And this is the continued necessity of produce prohibition to this field, to the Franciscan community, was just a proof that alchemy circulated a lot between them. And in fact, apart Rocca Tagliata, Rupe Scissa, there were more alchemists linked especially to the Occitan area, and then from there to Catalan, and yes, so I think they communicate between them. There was a net, like an ancient network. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, got a question from YouTube, which I shall read out. This is from G. Stewart. Rupiska used a pelican to refine the quintessence. Have you seen any mention of them earlier than him? And perhaps there might be evidence for glass blowers making glassware in Catalonia.
There might be evidence for glass. Yes. So alchemy, this kind of alchemy, medical alchemy, born in Catalonia in 12th century. So very early respect the rest of Europe. So was like the door between the diffusion of alchemy also in Europe, then in England, for example, no, because from the sea, no, and the commercial net. But was the first place. So the first notice that I find of alchemical practice was of the 12th century, so very, very early. Yes, and then there are at the beginning there is a mix between magic and alchemy, then gold making, but little by little the medical alchemy was the one that have a bigger diffusion in the area. Yes, and then about glass making. Yes, there is an alchemist that is very interesting that is called Guillaume Sedasser, and that was just interested in glass making. So this kind of alchemy then passed also to Florence. To Antonio Neri, for example, in one of my slides, there was a folio of a manuscript of Glasgow, in which there are a lot of kind of vessels, and come from a treatise of Antonio Neri. And this is the school that I think came from the Guillaume Sedasser in Catalonia. Yes. I don't know if it is.
Okay, thank you. We've got time for probably one more question. I have a question if nobody else. I have another question if nobody else has one. Okay, when you closed your talk with comparing what you've been working on in the sort of medieval, early modern, or medieval Renaissance period, with a comparison of today's medical humanities. Now, medical humanities is a pretty new term. I mean, I only became aware of it about sort of 20 years ago, and I think, I mean, I have to do some work on this if I was interested, not that, that it comes from the Wellcome Trust, because the Wellcome Trust, having spent a lot of money on history of medicine, decided it didn't actually like history of medicine, and so they changed its name to medical humanities, as that sounded better. And that's all term is spreading. So you get scientific humanities, engineering humanities, and stick any word you like in front of humanities, and it's you're bound to get a mention. And so I just wonder whether you could sort of unpack that sort of comparison for us.
Yes, I know that is a little bit courage not to do this kind of comparison, but I realize that is significant for us as moderns. The mentality of alchemy is important for us to understand the mentality, because you know, the medicine, the universal medicine, is something of old. I mean, medicine come on, do a lot of discovered and so on, and they works. So perhaps if you take some ancient potion now and you have a problem, a serious problem, you die. So we have to say this because people perhaps think of alternative course with too much facility. No, it's not. I recognize the importance of medicine, and this is a thing. Another thing is the mentality that they have of devotion and of respect of the environment, of the natural environment, of the world that surround us. This is important to recuperate and to understand from them, I think. So more than hope that we can find a medicine better than the ones of modern medicine, I think that we can understand the thing that is a relation with between the patient and the healer. This is important. The psychological acceptation of the cure, the environment. This kind of devotional healing that they have, and the relation of the mother nature and the respect of the mother nature, and the nature like a laboratory from which we have to understand this sense of process. This is important that we can understand from them. I think that is the most important thing. So, then techniques and so on, yes, is interesting to discover.
Sorry, so it's the sort of thing we would call holistic in English.
Yes, an holistic idea of cure.
Right.
I believe in the importance of this. No, without cutting nothing from modern medicine. I mean, modern medicine is okay, but perhaps have an holistic idea of the human, put the human body at the center of a world too, of an environment, a largest environment that we don't consider, because we, the moderns, perhaps try to have power on the nature, on the all the of an ill body, for example. Instead, they have a completely contrary approach. And this is the approach also of the alternative medicine, like the natives and so on. Is the same approach in this sense. This was the idea.
Okay, thank you. So it is now 6 o'clock London time, so I think it's time to draw the seminar to an end. Just a few things about what SHAC is doing. The next seminar in this series will be on the 22nd of January next year, and will sort of be announced in the usual way. Then on the 20th of March, we have the SHAC postgraduate and early career research meeting, which will be in Amsterdam. I can't remember when the call for papers that finishes, but it has been circulated on the usual bulletin boards. And then on the 10th of April in Oxford, we're having a meeting entitled Remembering Bill Brock, who died earlier this year. And the deadline for calls for papers is the end of this month. So that's not sure when the end of this month is. Sunday. So if you want to offer a paper, get it in. Send it to me. It just remains for me to thank all the people involved in organising and delivering this seminar. That's sort of Rob Johnson, Ian Tao, Anna Simmons, and Caroline Cobbold. But finally, obviously, to thank Stefania for giving us a really thought-provoking seminar. Thank you so much, and have a good day, evening, morning, wherever you happen to be in the world. So thank you.
Here in Italy are 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
This new hand, this new clapping is hands going up in the which is well,
thank you very much for this opportunity, and sorry for my English that I have to improve always. I'm happy to stay with you to share these topics.
Yeah. Okay, and we look forward to seeing a version of that in Ambix in the not too distant future.
Okay.
Rob, you're muted if you're saying anything.
Okay.
I was just going to say your English is fantastic. Your English is fantastic.
We had about 20 people in total, half on Zoom and half on YouTube.
On a manifesto pledged to offer all workers protection against unfair dismissal from their first day in the job.
Okay.
Oh,
sorry.
We are between us now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Right. Well, thank you for that, and look forward to seeing you at a meeting at some point in the. Are you coming to the ESHS HSS meeting in